take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones.
Oh, good evening. It's Mark Hughes. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance, and you caught me. This is Juxtaposition. We're here today. This is the 8th day of May, 2024. We've got a great program for you today. Looking forward to shouting out to some of y'all folks. Juxtaposition, a Vermont Racial Justice Alliance monthly community television program on CCTV, here where you've caught me. The Center for Media and Democracy. This is Town Meeting TV, folks. This is where we are. Issues affecting black folks and black folks affecting change. Welcome today. Today's program. How'd that work out for us? How'd that work out for us? So yeah, today we're going to be having some conversation about a movement that's happening in the legislature. We call it an Equal Protection Constitutional Amendment, in fact. So I'm going to give you some updates on that. For the first time in 247 years. For the first time in 247 years, a Vermont Equal Protection Constitutional Amendment is up for debate on the House floor today. Though we know that it's going to be decided in the courts, this constitutional amendment, it could lay the groundwork in creating a state legal approach to equal protection that assists Vermont in our ability to create survivable policies. That's to say, to correct disparate outcomes caused by systemic racism and other forms of oppression. You're going to love this. So they voted on it today. Stay tuned, drum roll, because just before going on the air today, I got the outcome of the vote on the House floor, and I'm going to leave you on a cliffhanger for a minute. I know with technology, you can probably go and take a look at your phone and figure it out, but hang in there with me and we'll come back to that. I'm telling you, with this constitutional amendment, it's going to be possible that this constitutional amendment may assist Vermont in providing a broader civil rights protections in the face of the national threats that we know are coming down. These protections, they could likely be expanded on some of the currently unprotected categories. This and more we'll cover today. So again, welcome. We've got a good program for you. We'll definitely give you some update on what this constitutional amendment is about. But first, a little bit about procedure, a little bit about, how we're going to get this done. For those who rode along with us for the constitutional amendment to abolish slavery, you'll remember that actually took a 4-year period. A constitutional amendment is required to withstand 2 biennium. That's to say a 2-year period. Our elected officials are elected for 2 years. A General Assembly session is 2 years. So this one that we're in right now is just ending. So this constitutional amendment, the first phase of it is kind of like a football game. If you want to think about a football game, quarter 1, quarter 2, and leading into halftime. That is to say, the first year is the first quarter, second year is second quarter. During that time, what we're required to do is to get that constitutional amendment through a 2/3 vote in the Senate, and then when it gets over into the House, there will be a House public hearing, and then it'll come back out onto the floor, and if voted out of the House committee, in this committee, judiciary, what happens is it comes back to the floor, and you guessed it, there has to be a majority vote, and that's what happened today. And those of you who've been waiting patiently, I'm just going to tell you. What happened is it was voted 140 to 4 yes. So the constitutional amendment has survived the first biennium. So what that means is that the next year, you will see this constitutional amendment emerge from the Rules Committee. And once it comes out of the Rules Committee, it will come back over into Judiciary. They'll take up additional testimony in the Senate. And from that point, if voted out of that committee, it'll go to the Senate floor, where it will only require a majority vote this time. And then from that point, if voted out of the Senate with a majority vote, then yes, of course, it will go back to the House. And the House will be required to have another public hearing. And this is all in year 1 and year 2 of next biennium. So all of this can occur at any time over that 2-year period before that next cohort comes up for re-election. So if the House does this again a year or 2 from now, then we will be looking at this. We'll be looking at this constitutional amendment getting all packaged up and sent over to the state secretary's office, where it will be prepared for the ballot. And in November, the first Tuesday after the first Monday, something like that, don't ask, it will go on the ballot. And that will be what will be equivalent to our midterm election. So I know, super boring, but that's kind of what it's looking like. Just taking a look at this next slide, just want to make you aware of the fact that we're going to be talking about the constitutional amendment here coming up in I think it's going to be on Tuesday. Thursday. On Thursday. Just so you know, swing on by the Richard Kemp Center. We'll be down there. You can come by. We can have a conversation. We're also going to talk a little bit about reparations and what we've been doing at the statewide level, as well as in Burlington with reparations. So come on down. We'll be over there. Thanks for that slide. So a little bit on background, because listen, here's the thing. With all of this stuff going on with the constitutional amendment, with the equal protection, there's so little that folks know. I thought I'd spend a little time and unpack some of this for you. So I'm going to come at you with some of the language from the testimony that I offered earlier in this session. I also have some pretty interesting information on from the Land Access Opportunity Board. I'm really proud of the legal work that was done on the front end of that. For those who don't know what the Land Access Opportunity Board is, it's interesting because it's right over the target. It's because to think about disparate outcomes in the legacy of slavery in seeking to implement equal protection clauses to preclude the perpetuation of that, and maybe to enable, to some extent, our ability to redress some of those challenges. The Land Access Opportunity Board is one of many initiatives that are underway. And this is particularly important because if you think about it, with systemic racism being a political and economic divide along racial lines, then we know that if the median wealth of a black family in the United States is 1/13 that of a white family, then of course, what that means is there's a wealth gap, significant wealth gap, that is incredibly difficult to overcome. So what that means is obviously equality is not what we need. What we need is equity, because equality would just hold that gap in moving forward, maybe even expand it. So the program was designed to enable black and brown and other indigenous folks of color and poor folks the ability to be able to gain ownership of or access to housing, land, and so forth. So I've got there is an appendix in that particular report that I think is going to be of interest to you. And I'm going to share some of the language from that in attempting to explain what it is that we're trying to do here, because I think it's important to know. I really think it's important to know. And what we're going to do is unlike what we did this particular session, what we're going to do in the second half of the ball game next biennium is we're going to lift off a sizable campaign to take this thing to the finish line. First, in June 2020, Burlington, the largest city, as you know, in Vermont, resolved racism as a citywide health crisis. The following month, a group of about 30, including the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance, the City of Burlington, the Howard Center, United Way Northwest, the University of Vermont Medical Center, Chittenden County Regional Planning, the Attorney General, the Chittenden County State's Attorney's Office, and others declared that racism was a public health emergency. Now, in April of 2021, the CDC director, Rochelle Walensky, medical doctor, MPH, declared racism a, quote, serious public threat that directly affects the well-being of millions of Americans and as a result affects the health of our entire nation. And in May of 2021, the Vermont General Assembly resolved that racism is a public health emergency. Now, why did I give you that as a preamble? Well, there are, and there continues to be, ongoing reversals and or significant alterations of civil rights protections previously safeguarded by the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Attempts to create policies and programs to redress systemic racism and other forms of systemic oppression are largely unable to withstand what is evolving as equal protection jurisprudence. So the equal protection doctrine is what they call it. It continues to be exploited by the use of highly complex discriminatory algorithms that further perpetuate systemic racism. Systemic racism and other forms of systemic oppression, they create wealth disparities and indirectly affect health. They also affect our wellness, and in fact, they threaten our economic growth and development. And ultimately, they place our democracy at risk. So, while the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause has provided a legal framework for challenging disparate outcomes created by systemic racism, its effectiveness is limited due to various reasons. Judicial interpretation being one of them, enforcement challenges, intersectional issues, and the need for a broader, clearly societal change. Addressing systemic racism, it requires a comprehensive approach that includes legal, legislative, social, and cultural efforts to promote equity, justice, and equality for all of us. Now, this business, this basic analysis business, this thing is something to unpack. And I think for those of us who joined when Professor Teachout was here, we did have some opportunity to go over a little bit of that. I'll scrape the surface a little bit of it, on it, and then I'll transition over to some other updates, and we'll come back to some other angles to look at this constitutional amendment from. The basic analysis doctrine, also known as the rational basis review, is a standard of judicial review applied by courts when assessing laws challenged under the Equal Protection Clause. Under this doctrine, courts, they typically defer to legislative discretion and uphold laws as long as they are rationally related to a government interest. This standard tends to make it more difficult to successfully challenge laws and policies that result in disparate outcomes due to systemic racism. Now, here's the deal. SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, they defied what we call stare decisis. In other words, what we did before, we'll do again. they kind of defied that. They stepped outside of those boundaries when they overturned Roe versus Wade. And as a result of recent ethical challenges exhibited also by the justices of the Supreme Court of the United States, their credibility actually is being called into question. Let's just say it, okay? So this has been going on for years and years. In fact, as a side note, it's important to note that there has been a history of kind of hijacking, if you will, various language in the Constitution and making it mean something that it wasn't intended to mean. We'll talk more about that later. But because of the court has been conservative for nearly all of its existence, maybe with the exception of probably about maybe 15 years, somebody correct me on that if you can, the Equal Protection Clause, it's rarely been interpreted in a manner that has given it the power that is required. Further, the existing jurisprudence of the Equal Protection Clause fails to acknowledge or enable the redress of systemic racism and other forms of systemic oppression. So the recent overturning, obviously, you may recall of affirmative actions, when it came to Harvard and UNC Chapel Hill, that also illustrates the reversal of established civil rights protections protected by the Equal Protection Clause. Plessy versus Ferguson, the United States versus Cruikshank, and other precedent reinforce that SCOTUS they have a proven propensity to reverse established civil rights protections protected by the Equal Protection Clause. Now, with a conservative supermajority right now in the United States Supreme Court into God knows how long, into perpetuity, and given the current political climate as well, let's not forget about that, and with this inflamed racial backlash, we're going to call it what it is, further reversals of this established civil rights protected by of established civil rights that are protected by the Equal Protection Clause, obviously are imminent. So that's some of the bases for some of the work that we're doing here. I think I'll kind of stop there for a minute and wanted to go over to an update. If you take you to the next slide, please. There's a huge debt of gratitude that I owe so many people who supported the Sankofa trip. We were sitting at about 85% of our target budget before we pulled out. When we got down, I think we skedaddled on 420, and we went down to DC. We took about 22 people down there with us. It was an amazing experience for the youth as well as the adults. We're going to be following up on Saturday with folks. We've asked for some homework. We're also going to have a public event. So I want to just say thank you for everybody who has supported. Somebody said it didn't happen unless you got a picture. So there it is. I think that's the entire group. The guy that's on the far left on his knee in the front is the handsome fella. I just wanted to call him out because oh yeah, that's me. But definitely thank you for that slide. But definitely thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it. We're still, the job's not over till the paperwork's done. And what's going on right now is we just want to get some time to wrap everything up. So there's a lot going on. Yeah, so definitely wanted to, just reflect a little bit more. I've got some notes. I don't think I'm going to go through all of this, but very, very important to understand, where did the 14th Amendment come from? There is the 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendment, commonly referred to as the Reconstruction Amendments. They abolished slavery and guaranteed the right to vote. 13 and 15, equal protection, the clause there, due process, citizenship also came with 14. Collectively, these amendments, again, they served as the foundation of the post-slavery United States between 1865 and 1870. This is what nobody is talking about. So when we start talking about equal protections, where are the origins of equal protection to protect black bodies. That's kind of where it came from. During the time of civil rights, the civil rights acts, there were some civil rights acts rather that were passed by Congress. Most notably, this is going to shake you up a little bit. An act called the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. That was our first civil rights act. Again, premised on the 14th Amendment's equal protection clause. You should know that that's also called Title 42, 1983. This is the statute that provides the primary cause of action to ensure that governments honor all persons' civil rights. This is the foundation. All of it came from the equal protection clause. What we're talking about, the fact that is that it in and of itself, not only has it never functioned, it has never really lived up to its full capabilities, but right now it's actually threatening us, because what's happening is there are elements of it that are being withdrawn, and it's actually being reversed upon us, and at the end of the day, coming back at us in the form of a so-called reverse discrimination, and that is as a result of poor jurisprudence, just ill-informed in just ugly jurisprudence that has developed over the last decades and in fact centuries here in the United States. So yeah, the whole creation of wealth in America was premised on what we call affirmative action, except for it was white affirmative action. I said it was white affirmative action, whether it was the GI Bill, whether it was it had to do with the Homestead Act, which distributed approximately 270,000 acres of land to white folks. And here's a slide, if you want to take a quick look at it, of some of the other things that we know that was created by public policy that was white affirmative action. We used public policy to create wealth in America, but now we have the 14th Amendment has been so flipped upside down that it's being used to prevent us from doing so. Thank you for that slide. For black folks, it's being used to prevent us from doing so. And I think that's the kind of part of the premise. I mean, you should know, as we begin to create programs and policies to redress some of these challenges. Again, as I said, they're being hung up in courts, and I can go down a whole list of court cases that exist. Also, as I just said, the emerging federal challenges, where the question is not, whether or not civil rights are being withdrawn. The question is which one is next, and then finally. The truth is as we did our research on this work, what we came to discover is that particularly in the disabilities communities, we don't really have the level of protections in our based upon the 14th Amendment's rights and the precedent that has been established. We really don't have the level of civil rights protections on our disabilities communities that we could if we were to have a equal protection constitutional amendment in the state of Vermont. So there's that as well, and so there's some case law there. I think it's Claiborne versus Claiborne, the Living Center, just to make you aware of that. So we've got a few different levels. We've got a few different levels that we're looking at here in terms of what this could actually accomplish. I would love to get into detail. I'm so tempted to get into this. This is so good. It is so good. But this is what the constitutional amendment is all about. So for those just joining us, we're talking about the Equal Protection Constitutional Amendment. Required to pass both bodies of the General Assembly, completed its passage of the second body this afternoon with 140 to 4 vote, 140 to 4. So we're done with the first half of the ball game. We'll come back next year and start over again. What I'm holding in my hand is attachment E of the initial report of the Land Access Opportunity Board. The reason why it was so important that they did this, and this was done by attorneys Robert Appel and Anthony Irapino, the reason why it was so important to do this is because immediately in our state legislature, there was deep concern about developing programs that would benefit folks who are not white. I'm going to say that one more time. Developing programs that would benefit folks who are not white. And I think it's super important to have this conversation because, again, take a look at this slide. When you start talking about poverty in America, we still have people, and there are folks in deliberations in the House today who are sitting there going, well, we have equality. Our Constitution's already working. Who are marginalized communities, and what about our French Canadian folks, and almost as if they didn't understand that. Thank you for that slide. That poverty in America is real. That was from the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for a moral revival. And that it affects certain demographics, and the reason why is because of the legacy of slavery. And that was why the 14th Amendment was created in the first place. So I think for far too long have we not taught real history. This primer, it says that the United States of America in the 21st century has been shaped by white supremacist institution of slavery and its many persistent vestiges and outgrowths. Vermont willingly joined the United States as the 14th state, knowing it was joining a nation with slavery at the core of its governmental structure and economy. The 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution was originally adopted during the short-lived Reconstruction era following the Civil War, a horrific war caused by slavery. The well-documented history of the amendment's passage made clear that its purpose was to help repair the damage to black people wrought by slavery. Its true meaning and just application in today's affirmative action context cannot be divorced from this original intent. Professor Eric Schapner summarizes this history as follows. And for those who are following along, I'm just reading the attachment that the general counsel thought necessary to include with the initial report of the Land Access Opportunity Board so as to properly contextualize the work that they were doing. And somehow or another, insert ourselves within a framework whereby we had to relegate to a theory or a philosophy that rising tides lift all ships in our final analysis. In other words, we had to pull back from what we really wanted to do in order to get this kind of work done because of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment has been weaponized and precludes us from being able to do this work directly. So as a result, what we have to do is we have to define what it means to be poor and or black in different ways. And that is to be able to layer or what I refer to as is creating various complex algorithms to make a definition of blackness. Maybe you're a Title I family. Maybe your kids have a free lunch program. Perhaps you live in a certain zip code. Maybe there's been somebody in the family who's been incarcerated. Perhaps there is a combination of various factors that at the end of the day point out with laser beam precision blackness. So this goes on to say that sadly, the account remains unbalanced as these programs were never fully realized. Like so many other promises made to former enslaved people, these programs were casualties of our nation's hasty retreat from Reconstruction. He goes on to say that the history of the 14th Amendment and its relation to reparative Reconstruction programs like the Freedmen's Bureau and land grant initiatives forecloses honest dispute of the proposition that the framers of the amendment could not have intended it to generally to prohibit affirmative action for blacks and other advantaged groups. Yet beginning in the late 1980s, a divided court began interpreting the Equal Protection Clause in ahistoric ways. And it goes on and it talks about the decision, various decisions, and perversely elevating the interests of white majorities who've never really suffered from widespread systems of state or federal oppression. So we got a 140 to 4 count on the Equal Protection constitutional amendment today. The question is how did that work out for us? We're on our way. We're almost there. Glad you were able to join us today. That's going to be it. That's going to be a wrap for us today. We're going to come back next time. We'll tell you more about our Growing Homes. Look at this slide. Our Growing Homes program. And that's going to be something that's going to be rolling out really quick. Excited to tell you more about how we're going to be doing that with Champlain Housing Trust and moving forward. This has been the Juxtaposition program, television program on CCTV, Center for Media and Democracy, issues affecting black folks affecting change. Good evening. Have a good one.